Hello, filmmakers! Welcome to this week's Blackmagic Collective event. This week we're doing a Film City face-off. If you're here, though, let us know, where are you from? Which city are you repping? And what do you do in the biz? We want to hear. We want to know who's here. We want to know what's going on. And make sure you say hello and ask us questions throughout the event. We are Blackmagic Collective. If you're not familiar, we're a collective of film and TV artists and crew. We have events, classes, career advancement initiatives, and much more. And membership is all free, and everything is free to you. So you can join at blackmagiccollective.com. We are also now currently open for Blackmagic Collective Film Festival submissions. Under 5 minutes films are considered each month. We have a pick of the month, and then you advance to the semifinals. And then in the finals, the top 10 are going to be at our live LA premiere at the film festival in Hollywood. And there are cool prizes. There's I don't even know what we have this year. I'll be honest. But last year we had like $1,000 and Ursa Mini G2 and all kinds of great stuff. Pocket cams for everyone. So get your films submitted there. Want to thank our sponsor, Rewind. Is there like a rewind button on the live show? Thank you, Blackmagic Design, for sponsoring us and for basically making it so we can do all this cool stuff for filmmakers for free. Reminder to put your questions in the Q&A box as we go, but we will definitely answer a lot of questions, all your questions at the end. So stick around for that. And who do we got here? We've got Juliet. Welcome, Juliet. She's actually in Miami, and she's one of our fellows from the All Access Initiative. We have De Bernardo Productions from Syracuse, New York, producer, director, actor. Sarah from Austin, Texas, actress, producer, creative director for Motivate Pictures, who is here on representing Austin today. And we have Christian. Where are you from, Christian? Rachel, screenwriter, director, independent filmmaker from Boston. Up, New England in the house. All right, keep letting us know where you're from and what you do in the biz as we go. But right now, let's get started. So if you don't know, I am Jenn Page. I'm the executive director of Blackmagic Collective, but I'm also director. I've directed 6 feature films, 12 digital series, a slew of music videos, and just like live shows. If there's some kind of medium out there, I've probably directed it. But I love doing these. I love getting to know other filmmakers and sharing all of our wisdom and knowledge and experience, and yours in the audience. You guys give great feedback throughout, and we always share that. So keep that going. For me, I am really excited to talk to these fellow directors and filmmakers, because I have been considering moving somewhere else. So I'm sure many of you have during the pandemic. It's like I really could probably live anywhere and still make movies. And it's cheaper to live anywhere else but LA, which is where I'm at in Los Angeles. So let's get this started. We've got, coming to us from Atlanta, we've got TC Barrera. From New York City, we've got Caytha Jentis. From New England, we've got Alecia Orsini. From Austin, we've got Maurice Moore. And from LA, joining me is Jennifer Khoe. Thank you all for being here. You guys are a very eclectic group who do very different and awesome things. So I guess let's just kick this off with... tell us maybe the first thing that comes to mind as being a filmmaker in your city and why you love it. TC, go first.
Oh man, that's a great question right off the bat. Without saying too many words, I'd say the diversity in both people and in the types of work that comes through Atlanta, and how dynamic everything that happens here is. I guess that's the first thing that comes to mind, and the good balance between independent work and studio work that comes through, and yeah, all that good stuff.
Okay, Caytha, same for you.
Yeah, hey, I'm Caytha, coming from New York City, and I mean, there's no other better place than the Big Apple. I've shot in Los Angeles, I've shot in New Jersey, and I would say New York City is such a film-friendly place, similar to what TC was saying about Atlanta. I mean, we've got an incredible wealth of talent. We have film credits. We have literally one of the most friendly, easiest cities to work in, and, you know, an amazing backdrop.
Love it. Love it. All right. Tell us about New England, Alecia. Uh-oh, you're muted. Are you muted? Nope. Unmute again.
It's these
There you go.
Man, all right, so you might hear my okay. I'm not gonna like pull any punches and tell you that we're friendly up here in New England. We're real. we're real friendly though. I got 6 states to rep for you today, and we have tax credits, we have resources, we have a workforce. I am the president of Women in Film. We've got that going on. I mean, shooting in New England, it's like no big deal here. You know, it's fun and we are friendly, but we're mostly real.
And moving to Austin with Maurice.
Hello, everybody. Austin's really friendly. I will tell you that right away. So I'll go on the opposite side of New England. Austin's really friendly. TC stole all the really great answers because Austin has the same thing. The diversity here is incredible. The caliber of filmmaking here is incredible, from short films to independent feature films to studio work that's going on, and just flat out the talent in general, from performers to the crew. I've worked with a ton of different people, from actors to writers to producers to filmmakers, and the caliber of talent here is incredible. But the one thing that I love most, and this is what I think is the best thing about the film industry in general, is like the working together, the collaboration that happens in this city, in this state, with everybody to make the great product, to make great film, is incredible. That's the best thing about Austin in general. It's been able to collaborate with so many different entities in the profession.
All right, and finally, Jenn from Los Angeles. We've got
everyone.
2 Jenns here, and we both use double N.
Double N. You got to do the double
it.
N. Got to have 2 N's. So I guess the first thing I think of when filmmaking in LA is huge. So there's, just there's the city of LA, then you've got the whole county, and then you have 14 municipalities outside of LA. And so navigating the system, luckily we have Film LA, which is, our local film permitting office. They help you kind of navigate the ins and outs of permitting, and where you can shoot, when you can shoot, and things like that. The beauty of it being so huge is that you have so much access to different places at your fingertips. You've got beach, you've got desert, you have city, you have anything you can think of. And obviously, it's Hollywood, and here's where so many people come and to create here. So you have access to crew. And I mean, I've filmed in New York and Austin before. It's been great. But whenever I come home, I'm like, I know exactly where I need to go. Things are just so accessible here, and you just have so much access to things at your fingertips. So
I love it. Sarah wants to make sure that we all know Austin has that too. And there was a great one up here. There's so many comments. I love it. Sarah, I love how many women are representing. Absolutely. Very important at Blackmagic Collective that we have diverse, because filmmaking there are diverse filmmakers, and this is the face. All of this you're seeing. M. Jones from Florida, let us know what you do in the biz, and also why is Florida the best place to film? Tell us that. And okay, so Sarah wants us to know that Austin is cheaper than LA. True. So let's jump into that actually. So Austin, Maurice.
Yep.
So we lost Jenn. I'm sure she'll be back in a second. I can speak from experience. LA is not cheap. Talk to us about Austin and sort of like, how are you getting by on low budget projects? Like, what's the lowest budget you've shot on, and what about Austin made that easy to do?
Oh, wow. The lowest budget is like $1,000, depending on what we're talking about doing. Because I still do short films. I produce short films, and I mentor up and coming filmmakers as well. So creating budgets and opportunities for them to do the work. So I do low budget, mid budget, and high budget films. But yeah, I lived in LA for about a decade, and filming in LA is beautiful, but it is incredibly expensive. In Austin, the film friendly community, and like, as I say, collaboration is probably the most important thing. So it's the tax incentives, I think, are great. They used to be even better, and now they're getting stronger again. But the amount of individuals that you can rely on, people that are doing things in kind for you, finding locations and finding crew and individuals that are working for the ultra low budget wages, is the amount of talent that we can find with the amount of money that we can spend, whether it's low, mid, or high budget, is incredible. Plus the locations, you can get permits for free here, basically in Austin, as long as you have insurance. Insurance is first and foremost, but most of the permits, except for city and state buildings or parks, you get basically for free. So you can shoot all around the city, and the diversity in the city, from historical areas in the city, Austin is the
Well,
capital.
let me stop you because I want to, since we're talking about money, the money part first and permits. LA is not cheap for permits. It's absolutely not indie filmmaker friendly when it comes to permitting. I'm talking, we're probably what, Jen, 650, 700 just to
It's
start.
700, yeah, just to start. And then if you have to like, you have notification fees if you're filming on residential, you have rider fees if you change like your time, if you have to push it an hour, you have to pay this. And then you, depending on where you shoot, you have to have like a film monitor and all this stuff. So I always
Fire
budget like
marshals,
minimum $1,200 minimum, like for a permit.
And that's per day usually.
Per day.
Like there's no like, oh, we're gonna film for a week. You can get a grid permit and film, say, all over this certain block.
Yeah.
But you have to pay each day for that.
Yeah.
TC, what is the permit situation like in Atlanta?
So I think it's so interesting to hear all of this. I was born and raised in Los Angeles and started my career there in 2015 is when I left and came to Atlanta. And then since then I've worked around Austin, and I've done some work in Dallas. I've worked up in New York. I've worked near Boston, all of those phenomenal places. And I think it's so interesting. I just got off of a feature literally 4 days ago. It had Michael Rooker, Bruce Willis, Olga Kurylenko, who's a Bond girl from, I believe, Quantum of Solace. And we shot in a place called Tifton, Georgia, which is about 3 hours south of Atlanta. And I think it's interesting now is a really weird time for permitting and discussions about permitting. The state of Georgia just passed a new bill that would allow better tax incentives to be in South Georgia, which is just outside of Atlanta, to assist with the coronavirus pandemic and how the pandemic affected agricultural towns. So actually in South Georgia, where I just was, and in places like Thomasville and Valdosta and Tifton, Georgia, which is just outside of Atlanta, but super close to all of the infrastructure and still very well connected, it's actually dirt cheap to get things like permits. It's dirt cheap to do anything there. I mean, we were shooting in this town, Tifton, Georgia, which, shout out to the people at Tifton, were so kind and wonderful to us. But it was literally like almost free. It was dirt cheap permits, and we were doing like really large stunts, and we blew up a building, we were crashing cars, we were shooting stuff. It was insane. And it was one of those things where, like, you look at the city of Atlanta, and one thing that I haven't mentioned that I think is so fascinating is that it's the middle of so much. I mean, we talk about people from Florida and the Carolinas and Tennessee and all of these different places, and Atlanta is right in the middle of that. And I think what's interesting when we talk about permits and money is that so much of that is so cheap because you're in a place that relies on economically on things like the agriculture industry, and it's cheaper, and everything is cheaper here. So when you talk about things like permits, you just everything's cheaper.
Do you happen to know offhand? You happen to know offhand who? I think I'm going to echo from somebody. Everybody mute that's not talking, I guess. Do you happen to know offhand how much it is to get a permit if you want to shoot, say, downtown Atlanta for a day? Unmute yourself.
There it is. So in Fulton County, I believe we're looking, which is like downtown Atlanta, I believe we're looking at like $500 to $800. For me,
so it's still
the
pretty
last shoot
pricey.
I did, yeah, I mean, and that's purely because, again, we've got so much studio work that's coming into Atlanta that it's skyrocketing prices. But the last shoot that I did in downtown Atlanta, where I had to deal with Permit World, was in early 2020, before the pandemic. I think we got a permit for, it was like maybe like $485. So right around like between $450 and like $800, basically.
So
Cheaper than
far, LA and Atlanta are crazy in their permits. Austin is easy. Let's talk about New York City, because I know in New York City, I've filmed in the middle of Times Square with cops staring at me and they just didn't even blink an eye.
Yeah, I'm just saying that is what's shockingly amazing about New York. So the permit, I believe, is $300, which usually just get if you're shooting on a street, where you need to shut things down. You get the police, you get cars towed, you get a fire department. The police department in New York has its own film division to make it super friendly for filmmakers to make that happen. And I think it's counterintuitive with anybody would imagine. So it's the New York city office is so easy to work with. And because I do, pretty low budget feature films that, get major distribution, but I'm shooting all in that SAG modified low budget space, or, which is like around anywhere, the 300,000 to 500,000 range. So every dollar matters. And I mean, you could shoot I just did a short film for not a lot of money in Central Park. I've shot in Central Park. You just have to let them know. Like, they don't even fall under the jurisdiction of the city. And so, we did this a little bit guerrilla, and the park rangers came by and they're like, do you have a, do you have a permit? You do that little, yeah, I think, we called somebody. And they're like, well, just move your equipment off of the tree. And then they left, that was so. And I've shot, just in terms of locations as well, I shot once, and with like Steve Guttenberg. And again, I can talk about how friendly talent is to give you reasonable rates, and you can get LA people to work as local hires in New York.
Let's stick on permits and the cost first.
Yeah, so I'm just saying, yeah. So that's my end on the permits, is that you could get away without them when you're shooting inside, and you really get them, especially if you're a studio, you have to cross a lot more T's and dot I's. But for me, when I've shot outside and need police support, that's when I've gotten the permits.
I agree with Heather here. She says that is way different than I would have imagined, for sure. So then New England, that kind of covers a group. I think most people think of Boston, but it's sort of that whole area.
Well, Boston,
what is it like?
Yeah, Boston would be the most expensive for permits, but truly there you're working with, depending if you're on municipal property or if you're on private property. The general rule is that don't have more than 10 people out on the street and don't block a sidewalk. And you can usually get away with a small indie thing. If you're going to have a big, large, if you're bringing a $3 million movie to town, it's you have to have a $5,000 bond and a permit with the state, again, if it's on municipal property. But then the permit itself can be, it just depends. I mean, you go outside of Boston and you're working with your particular towns. Again, 10 on the ground. It's like 10 people on the ground and the tripod. You can get away with a lot. So there are oftentimes we'll send like a B unit to go get something. And, we're like, all right, you can do that. Just often, if we're going to block a street, even for our indie films, it's paying a cop detail and letting somebody know at a selectman's office or a clerk's office know that you're going to be filming, what you're doing, what the dates are, and hey, I'm going to pay $70 for a detail to come out and do that. You get outside of Boston and it's, same thing. You're going to be saying, hey, I'm going to be shooting in the park, and they're going to say, yeah, we don't care.
That is unreal.
Don't block the street. Right. Don't block the sidewalk. Don't destruct any property. I mean, it's especially, you're just making a deal with private property. If you're wanting to shoot there, it's pretty loose, and people around here are pretty excited to have you come and shoot. Like, oh, are you going to get my restaurant in the shot? Are you going to get
that? Is not that in LA, and I think Jenn could agree with this. That is not what happens locations here. It's like, what do you get off my property or pay me?
Yeah, right. And
Jenn, unmute yourself.
So maybe we are really friendly.
You are.
Yeah, Jenn and I are just shaking our heads listening to you guys, because I'm just like, what? They just let you.
And the thing that's interesting is that Atlanta is very quickly going that way. I feel very fortunate to have been in Atlanta earlier, before things became so stringent in like Fulton County, which is where downtown Atlanta and the good chunk of the city is. But I mean, more and more, with more studios coming in and Atlanta becoming such a desirable spot to bring filmmaking to, it is, I mean, the truth of it is, it is getting more expensive. And with that, quality of work gets better. And that's the thing that, we talk about cost going up, and it's a shame if you're doing independent work, which again, I'm a person that stands on this soapbox a lot. If you're an independent filmmaker and you want to get your film done, you're going to find a way to get it done one way or the other. I mean, you think about, dudes like all these independent filmmakers that just found a way regardless of cost. And I think it's a really important thing to take note of, is that, like, despite things getting more expensive, if you're an independent filmmaker and you find your community in whatever city that you're in, you're going to find a way to make it.
Yeah, that's great, TC. But it sounds like Atlanta is now out, and we're all moving to New England, Austin, and New York.
Sounds like it.
Well, I gotta give Georgia a shout out though. I went to Savannah College of Art and Design.
Oh, nice.
Okay. I loved Georgia. I will say that 16 from Savannah up to Atlanta is a hellish drive, and I will never do that 4-hour drive again. But Savannah is opening. The school is opening a backlot because of the
nice. Yeah, it is. Yeah, so it's interesting also, and again with a place like Georgia, growing in size, and obviously that's bringing technology and people and all of these things. At Savannah College Art and Design, they have these LED walls. The LED walls that are featured in things like, most popularly, the Mandalorian TV show with Disney Plus. I actually got a chance to work on one of these LED walls that's brand new to Atlanta, that literally just got built super recently, and it was with a company called New East Rentals, and they just got built up here in Atlanta, and they have a huge passion for bringing this technology to be more accessible for independent filmmakers.
That's great.
So I was able to do a few spec commercials with myself and my team, and alongside another production company that works in town, and we shot like 2 or 3 spec commercials on this new technology, and they catered to independent work. And I think that's a huge thing to keep in mind, is that despite the growing size of whatever city that you're in, and I'm sure, with luck, everybody wants each of our cities to grow larger and larger. With that, more people will be more willing to work with independent filmmakers, because we're the backbone of the industry a lot of the times.
I think that's great in theory, but I think in practice, Jenn and I will. Jenn, you speak up, please. But I think we would disagree. I think the bigger it gets, the less indie filmmaker friendly the city becomes.
And that's what my concern is here about Austin. It's exactly what TC is saying in Atlanta, but Austin's technology is starting to, the technology companies are starting to come here. It's booming in growth. I mean, it's one of the fastest growing cities in the country. That makes me a little afraid that the permits and some of the things that independent filmmakers have been able to do consistently is going to potentially change, because so much money is coming here. So many people are coming here, and it's a beautiful place to be. We have everything you would ever want when it comes to filming, just right in and around the Austin area. But with so much more money and so much new technology, exactly that. We have a production company here called, I think it's called No Production House, which is doing the same Mandalorian technology that you guys are talking about in Atlanta. It's huge and it's great, and it's given us all an opportunity for studio space and to work, but it is the capital city. There's a lot of things that potentially could push the independent filmmaker out a little bit with more of the studio work that's coming in. So we, as the independent world, we are really working hard to keep the backbone of Austin the way that it is. You guys may have heard the term "keep Austin weird." Part of the reason why that term exists is because Austin was always this city that had this small town feel. And that was what was really beautiful about the city growing. We could always still feel like we were in this small town, and the more blue collar workers had opportunities to really shine. And I don't want to lose that as an independent filmmaker, even though there's studio work that I do. I don't want to lose that, because there's so much talent and work for the independent filmmaker. So just what you're saying, Jenn, I think it's possible that we could move in that direction of pushing out the independent filmmaker, but we want to work really hard not to let that happen.
Really quick, guys. I want to put some of the audience comments up, because there's some great stuff that we've missed. Heather said that she thinks the most she's ever paid for a permit in Austin was $180. Laura says Austin also has really gorgeous buildings downtown and bats under the bridge.
Yeah, I filmed the bat.
Walk away.
Michael, multimedia producer, he says, I guess I'll represent the UK. I know it's a country technically, but I'm cheating. Great. The whole UK. We would like to know, I would love to go film in London and film out there. Please give us some facts, drop some knowledge for us, Michael. We need to have you on a future one. And Rachel says, New Englanders are super friendly.
Yeah, Rachel.
Can I give a quick shout out to Laura, Heather, and Sarah? They're all members of Motivate Pictures, and so they're representing Austin big time. And I'm giving a mad shout out to my family, because you guys are stepping up and representing.
That shows a lot. They've come to represent and support. I think that says a lot about the film family that you have here in Austin. Absolutely. Let's talk about cast, because I know it's a huge thing. A lot of times, LA, it's easy to get cast because everybody lives here, so it's easy, quote unquote. But it's also very expensive. Would love to go around, Robin, starting with Caytha, because you are in a big city as well, what is it like getting name talent?
Yeah, and I just wanted to piggyback on that last thing is because New York has always had big and little, so I think we've just operated that way, and that's how I would pivot into cast. I mean, certainly we have a lot of, as do the other cities, but we've always had a lot of TV and fighting for episodic, a lot of commercials and the independent work. So, and theater, so I do feel that is one of the huge advantages of shooting in New York is that, I mean, so many people in all these different types of work live here or are willing to, and I usually joke with talent, you want to come back and renew your New York visa to the LA talent. You want to just live here for a little while to bring your real life back. And so I've had really great experiences and opportunities working with, name talent on small films. And again, just they're willing to do that because they'll squeeze it in amongst their other work that they're doing. And, you're getting their I worked with Michael Boatman, who was on The Good Wife and The Good Fight, and his agent really supported me as an independent filmmaker. And she would say, okay, this is his day off. If you can make his day on that day, you can have him. So I really do think that's another huge advantage that we have, making all types of film, TV, and commercials in New York.
I love it. Jenn, we haven't heard much from you. So what has your experience in LA been?
Yeah.
Getting name talent?
Honestly, again, like you said, there's so many actors and talent in LA and casting directors out here and independent casting. I actually haven't found it too expensive to find cast out here because, people come to LA and you have so many budding stars or people who are just starting out as well. And I think there's such a creative energy in LA that people, I've never had a hard time finding people who just want to collaborate and make things together. And so, yeah, I mean, I love finding and casting out in LA. It's always fun and you get so much variety, so many options.
I've also found with name talent, I mean, we're not talking A-listers, of course, but like name talent we want to get here because they are here. We can usually offer a flat fee of come do 6 days for $5,000 kind of thing.
Yeah. And you don't have to worry about, like you said, travel and things like that. So,
Maurice, what's Austin like? I know you've got some good talent down there.
We do. And I would say that one of the key things you just said is with the name talent, Austin is one of those cities people want to kind of come to just in general because there's so much going on. So they're always excited just to kind of come to Austin. So flat fees and working around schedules has always been the best thing to be able to do. Agents and managers usually are pretty good. If you have dates and schedules, then obviously the material is good. But to be honest with you, I lived in Austin for about a decade before I moved to LA and lived in LA for about a decade and worked as a filmmaker. And then I moved back to Austin. I've been back here now, I think 6 or 7 years, and I go back and forth between Austin in LA. And when I went to LA, I always knew I was coming back to Austin for this specific reason, because the talent in Austin is as good as anywhere in the country. And in addition to Motivate Pictures, I also own an acting studio called Breathe Acting Studio. And one of the things that was key for me about that was grooming and building such incredible talent, harnessing that, nurturing that, and actually keeping them local. So producing film that the actors that are in the same city can work in was and is a big key for me. So they didn't have to move to LA and New York. No disrespect to LA and New York. They're great. That's the meccas of filmmaking and artists. But Austin has that, and losing that talent as opposed to using it here and then turning Austin into that identifiable city is something that I always wanted to do. So getting actors to work here with the right talent, the right scripts, the talent of the level of actors, the Peggy Schatz of the world, the Kelly Dealans of the world, the Sarah Nierkos of the world, are really, really a motivation to keep producing good quality work here. And they want to work. They're artists, and they don't want to work for free. But if they had to be in a good project, they will. And that's where the collaboration and the building of relationships come from. When it comes to locations, people want to give homes and buildings because they want to nurture the talent that's here because they believe in what we have. And so I really work hard at being a part of the talent pool here as well, including, creating, quality film. So that's the key for me, even more than the name actors who I certainly work with and want to work with. I like the idea of building talent that people don't know yet.
I want to give a quick shout out here. Christian, who's watching, says, it was an honor and a blessing to work with Caytha. I highly recommend her. One of the best filmmakers I've ever worked with. Aw, how lovely is that? And that's, I'm assuming Christian's a New Yorker. You guys aren't usually that nice, are you? And yeah. M. Jones says, New York City is always great accessibility to some talent. But from my experience, when it comes to creativity, people in LA are always ready to collaborate to build their brand. I know when I lived in New York, I did find it harder to find like-minded people. And in LA, I bump into them around every corner. What would you say it's like in New England, Alecia?
Finding talent here is great. We have so many actors who, I mean, all right, let's just talk about the Ben Affleck in the room. Listen, all the way down from the fact that Chris Evans is now living back in Massachusetts and developing films and smaller things. We have great casting agents here. Angela Perry at Boston Casting. And we have a really good relationship with our bi-coastal people in LA and an awesome relationship with New York. So our actors are going everywhere, but the local talent that we have is great. And if you really want to see something hilarious, Ben Affleck's first role was in Voyage of the Mimi, which was an educational thing we had to watch in like the 6th grade. It's hilarious.
Must find that.
Voyage of the Mimi. Go Google it.
It's writing that down.
Yeah, no, talent here is great. But not only that, we have a great pipeline for talent with colleges like Emerson in our backyard. The college system here is crazy. I think we have over 100 colleges that teach arts in the city of alone. And then you start going out to Keene State and Yale and up in Dartmouth. Maine is a great, if you want to go hide and make your film and really enjoy nature. Maine also has a lot of, I mean, we got Stephen King up there, but it's a nice retreat for a lot of actors like to go up there as well. So it's usually you got to dig a little bit, but with our relationships with New York and LA, another casting agencies like Slate Casting or new and up and coming, we've gotten so busy here that we are opening new casting agencies to handle the talent.
I feel like everybody on here, you should keep Alecia's contact handy because she seems to know everything about that entire area, which I love. Oh, yes. Really quick, we have Sharon, yay, New England. M. Jones, that's not the right one I wanted. I wanted to do the Michael from London. He says, London is a nightmare for permits, but if you're a small enough crew, you just need to inform the local council and don't need a permit.
Michael, you're only like a 6-hour flight. Your flight to New England to Boston is my flight to LA. So just come hang out.
That's crazy. Christian says, I'm from Philadelphia, but reside in Syracuse, New York. And I'm friendly. Can't speak for everyone else. That is great.
Okay, so is great for film too.
TC, we already know casting's pretty much Atlanta's become a hub. It's not difficult. Let's talk about crew. Atlanta, as far as, because it's gotten so big, can you still get people to come out and volunteer for indie projects or for low budget?
Oh man, I love this question so much. I wanna piggyback off of something that Maurice said earlier, and he said a phrase that really resonates with me because I talk about it constantly. Is this idea of blue collar people in Atlanta? The thing that I've noticed that's so different from Los Angeles is there's such an air of blue collar work. You know, a lot of the filmmakers that are here are these boots on the ground, nose to the grindstone people that just love work, period. They love studio work. They love independent work. Episodic work is, you know, how a lot of people make their money here. There are phenomenal, you know, there's phenomenal studio work to pad the pockets of a lot of the film base that's here. But I do independent films all the time. I work on so many of I'm a huge supporter of independent film, specifically sourced in the South. And I'm producing short films. I'm producing commercials at a small budget. I'm, producing my own films and yada, yada. And it's not hard at all. There's so many crew members. And what I find so interesting is that so many of them are coming from everybody else's cities. I meet people on every set that I'm on, like, hey, I just moved here from Los Angeles because it's cheaper, and I've just moved here from New York, in New England, all of these different places. They're all coming here, and they just love the work. And the people that have been here, and the people that are local here, share that same passion with me, that they love studio work and they love all of that, but they also love coming on to small projects. And I think that's a huge, huge benefit to being in Atlanta is it's people that just love work, just straight up love work. No matter what it is, they'll come out and do it if they like the people. And the South is friendly and it's always, it's an inherent, nobody asks questions of like, oh, are people in the South nice? They have that like Southern charm about them. And, sometimes there are negatives to it, but, a lot of the times everyone just loves working. And that's what's great about being in Atlanta. You will find, if you're looking to move to Atlanta to start working and doing independent films and maybe getting in with some studio work, this is the place to go because, again, you are going to find a group of people. And that's what it's all about. Finding a group of people that you can work with and building your team. You're going to find that team because there's just so many of us here.
Jenn, what is your experience with LA and getting crews for low or no budget?
Well, it depends because, obviously we have all the unions like IATSE, and then you have your Teamsters, and then you have your like makeup art, like all the different unions. In general, I have been flipped before. So that sometimes happens on shoots where if it's like a non-union shoot and then you get the doomed like, hey, someone's here to see you. You're like, oh no. So, I mean, it's not hard to find crew also because you have so many, if you are working on indie films, you have like students too that want to get work experience. You have access to a ton of new people that want to get on-set experience. But in general, I'd say I've found it easier to find crew than like filming in New York. People are a little bit more flexible with rates in LA. And our rates are pretty competitive. And non-union people are willing to work, or union people are usually willing to work non-union stuff, even though you're not technically supposed to. So yeah, it's easy to find people here, and you just have to make sure you don't get caught and flipped into
What would you pay a PA, a non-union PA in LA?
A non-union PA, well, we try to adhere to minimum wage, which is what, 14 now?
Yeah, I think it's something like 126 for 12.
126 for 12.
Yeah.
So we try to at least adhere to minimum wage. Like obviously, if it's like a super, super indie, we try to do favor nation rates and hey, will you come up for like $100, 120, something like that. But yeah. And you can find G&E for like younger people for like $350 for 12, maybe.
Yeah. I mean, I think with most crew, at least pre-pandemic, probably so now because people really don't work. I would say 200 a day is the most typical rate in LA for low budget.
Yeah.
What about you, Alecia? What are you finding?
Yeah, ultra low budget SAG or a day for an actor, if we were talking about actors, is like about a little over 285, so like 300. So like a PA non-union, we're trying to stick to around 170, 175. You can, again, it depends if, that's for a 12. If you're doing, and because of COVID, there are a lot of French hours right now, 10-hour days. So you can come back off of that a little bit, but we're trying to keep it. There was a thing happening for a while here where rates were slipping down to 70 for a day. And if anybody's gets that offer, just tell them no. And there's no such thing as a half day. But now that there is so much work, we're seeing that rate go back up into the 170s, into 200. And as we're coming into our high season, if you're a PA, you ask for the rate, ask for it because you'll get it. And for crew around here, oh my gosh, I'm actually running out of crew. Come to New England. My biggest competitor on this panel is actually Atlanta. Because we've got people like staying on the East Coast. We've both got really competitive tax credits. It is so much cheaper to live down where you are. So we will have people come cut their teeth, and they've got the same unions most of the time. They can like stay on, depending, you can stay on that side of the Mississippi. So like right now, I'm trying to crew up. I need grips. I need location people. I need ADs. We are moving up a lot of people who have cut their teeth on a lot of PA work, and they're all moving up right now because we have so much work because of our incentives. It's really a very exciting time here in New England, and that's not even just the Boston area. We're talking about Rhode Island and even Connecticut. Connecticut's tax credit is a little interesting, but because there's so much kind of offshoot from New York, You're seeing Connecticut kind of get squeezed between Boston and New York, and there's a good amount of work there too. I mean, if you've watched a Hallmark Lifetime movie, it's probably come either out of Boston or Connecticut. One studio in Connecticut like pumps out.
I can't wait till I get to shoot my Hallmark Lifetime Christmas
I would
movie.
actually,
I want to do it so bad.
Yeah.
I just want to point during COVID. So I've done probably about, this is a weird thing, but and I don't know how much I should admit to this, considering what I'm trying to get into, but I've probably done between 35 and 40 Hallmark Lifetime movies in my career.
Pay the bills, man.
Yeah, and they pay the bills, and you know, they're fun to work on. It's a small crew, and during COVID, you know, I had stepped away from the Hallmark Lifetime world for a few years at this point, but I came back during COVID because it was all I was shooting. In a year, you know, a lot of these shoots are between like 12 to 16 days. Literally shot like 6 or 7 of them in the course of like 2020. So there's a lot shooting in Atlanta, weirdly enough. And then I did one weirdly enough in Wisconsin and then North Carolina. Yeah. Those movies, man,
they're shooting these everywhere, because actually right now I'm in Vancouver in Canada, and they film Hallmark Christmas movies, like so many. So they're shooting these things everywhere, you guys.
No.
Then why haven't I got one yet?
15-day shoots.
Yeah.
Maurice, can you talk to us about crew as far as like the rates you can kind of get away with on the lower side?
Yeah, actually, I don't want to speak out of turn. Anybody from Austin, please chime in and tell me if I'm wrong about this. But the difference between Austin and what I'm hearing in Atlanta, New York, LA, and New England is there's more work going on in those areas than it is here in Austin. There's a lot of work happening in Austin, but we know what's happening in Atlanta now. Like, you guys are going nuts down there. It's really great to be there, which is why a lot of people are moving there. LA, New York speaks for itself, and the whole New England area is awesome. There are a ton of shows that are starting to come back to Austin. There's a lot of independent filmmaking. Austin was called Little Hollywood back in the day when I first moved here. And then some of it was politics and bureaucracy that kind of, when it came to tax incentive, that took away a lot of the shows that were being filmed here and the films that were brought here. And it's slowly starting to build up. And the reason why that's important is the crews that are here, like for Fear the Walking Dead is being shot here. The Sun is being shot here. There's a lot of really incredibly talented crews that are on those shows, but because it's not as many, there's a lot of independent work that's happening. So, and people want to work and need to work, and they need the money. So unfortunately, and I say unfortunately because I want to pay people the proper rates, but unfortunately for the crew, it's a little easier to get them for a much lower rate just so they can work and make ends meet, especially during the COVID world. I just shot a feature a month and a half ago in the COVID protocol. And, working through COVID protocol when there's not a ton of work, people are willing to work for a bit lower rates, whether they're sound or cinematographers. And I brought my cinematographer in from Barcelona, Spain, because I've been working with him for 15 years or so. So it's a little easier here in Austin to get competitive rates in the independent world because people just need to work. And when I say blue collar, they just want to work, they're willing to work. And I love that. And they don't complain. They understand the budgets are lower. They understand that the work is there. They understand that we try to be respectful to the 12-hour days and not shooting 15-hour days and holding them hostage based on the lower rates that we're paying, making sure the sets are running correctly. So that part is really interesting here in Austin compared to everyone else, because I just think that the work is a little bit less than all the other places, and people just want to work until we rebuild the industry the way that it was and the way that Atlanta and New York is doing right now.
Caytha, I'm glad you're back, because Jenn had said something about it was harder in New York to get crew. What do you think about that?
Yeah, I do disagree, but I do think, like all these things, it is very personal to your own experience and the types of things you're doing. But I've always found, first of all, there are a lot of crew here, a lot of non-union and union crew. And I do think to all this stuff, it's about respect. And I think if somebody sees, and again, because I'm not the line producer, so I'm not the one that negotiates the rate, but I think that if they feel they're being treated with respect, that you're not taking advantage of them, there is that whole thing about food, you feed them well, and people know what your budget is, and if they have the time, they will work below rate. And again, it's just, I think it all comes down to everybody knows how hard some of these things are that we do, and we are artists, and nobody is, but I think that you need to, as a filmmaker and the producers, respect to things I think I picked up on, that you can't take advantage of these people. They have rent, they have, transportation, but that is what's nice too about New York. You don't have to rely on cars. So if you pick up somebody's Metro card, on your crew, it's not as expensive as gas to getting to set and things like that. And, with social media and all these boards that we have, New York City filmmakers, when you can put the word out to find, when you are crewing up, and, there just is similarly, I think there's a lot of workers, a lot of people do things. I think people, if you give them a different credit, who are in the union, and it'll be like, okay, I'm doing these commercials to pay my rent, but I'm doing the independent films for my soul, and you can find those people, but it's everything. None of it's ever easy.
And you brought up a big point too about the commercial work, is that there is, I'm sure everybody actually has this, but especially in New England, we have some big ad houses, Mullen, Arnold Worldwide, Hill Holiday, and they're all doing big advertising campaigns that usually are reaching above our film tax incentive. So you have these folks who will do their films, do their big budget films, do indie films, our union, and then in the off season, they're doing commercial work. And it has become a great ecosystem. And then sometimes they go back to LA and they hang out, or they go down to Atlanta. So the crew, and because our world is getting smaller too, the crew just keeps moving around. And yeah, I like how you said it was about respect, because it is. It's about, can I get behind the story? Can I get behind, what you want to do creatively? But at the end of the day, I got to pay my rent.
Guys, we're running out of time, and I want to make sure we hit a very important one, which is locations. So we know that everybody has gorgeous locations. That's not the question. The question is, how hard is it to get them? Like in LA, it's almost impossible without a certain amount of money. So I'd love to round robin on Talk to Us. Talk to us about the most expensive location you've ever gotten for, say, free or cheap, and what it's normally like. Maurice, do you want to start with that?
Ooh, that's
a good one.
It's a great question. Well, the locations here are just tremendous because Austin being the capital city, and all the hill country that's around, the skyline has become incredible. We got lakes, and we got historical buildings, all types of things, which is really great. Homes are pretty easy to get, including big homes, if you have the right relationships, and that's kind of the key. Everything I think about Austin is building great relationships with individuals. I've been able to work in downtown office buildings, major office buildings for next to nothing, because of relationships that I have with individuals that work in the building, that speaks to their bosses and say, as long as you shoot at the midnight and you're done by 6 a.m. on Friday or Saturday, you can have the building, obviously with some insurance, and clean the crew and leave us some donuts, we're good to go. So that happens quite a bit, and being able to shoot at like the Pennybacker Bridge and areas that are major kind of touristy areas, as long as you kind of give heads up about things, it's pretty easy to get. And again, I don't want to speak out of turn, but it's pretty easy to get as long as the relationships are there. Because
I want to ask you about this, Mo. Laura says the airplane hangar where you shot Founding Father. What's the story with that?
That's a great question. I forgot about that. That was actually shot about an hour outside of Austin, in Temple, Texas, and that was definitely a relationship. I have a really great friend who is a producer as well, who knew a guy who was a pilot and has this beautiful private plane, who housed it in this amazing airplane hangar in Temple, Texas, and he took us out for a full day, and I got a chance to get all my takeoff shots. I got a chance to shoot and fly around the entire city, because he was an independent pilot, and shoot all our internal shots of the inside. And it was just tremendous. And I paid not a dime for it. Took him out for a beer.
What?
he came to the screening of the film. He got a credit in the movie, and he says, anytime you ever want to do it again, let me know. Didn't pay one single dime for it. And that was all based on relationships, and I owe that to
I need to be friends with your friends.
Yeah, major shout out to Jesse George. Let me say that, in Austin, Texas as well. And that's, like I said, that's kind of what happens here with me in Austin is I'm big on relationships. I'm big on collaboration, and with people who just want to work and do really great projects, and the project's got to be great, then things can get done.
Talk to me, Caytha, about at New York City. What's the biggest, craziest building or something you've shot in?
I just want to piggyback on that because I did this web series and the opening scene was a skydiving birthday party. And I was like running into a lot of resistance because it dealt with, women, empty nester women. Everybody in LA was like, nobody cares about your demographic and we want millennial content, yada, yada, yada. So, and I was like, well, I'll show you, I'm going to make a web series. And the opening scene was a skydiving. And again, I got a skydiving plane for free. I called him up. I gave him a nice story. This was in New Jersey though. And we got to shoot a whole day. We didn't put it up in the air. And it was the cast. It was her birthday or she was going skydiving. And I said, look, I'm not going to pay you because I'm afraid I'll jinx it, but I'll reimburse you when you're on the ground for the skydiving. Just get them shooting you like you do and say, no fear, bitches, jumping out of the plane. So I cheated a skydiving thing for the price of my actress going on a skydiving trip. But
wow,
I've shot in a bar in Midtown by Penn Station. And restaurants. I mean, I feel like it's the same thing that Maurice is saying. It's, first of all, everything's selling and out of respect, and not just assuming everybody wants this big crew coming into their location and disrupting business. And so many times it is with the restaurants that I've worked deals with, you say, we're going to cater from you. You do all these things to make it that they're not losing business. I shot in a health club once where we shot in the midnight. I mean, I try to pay for people and not locations. Ideally, that's how I like to look at it. And same thing with the permits. However much I can put the money in my budget into people's hands is how, it's all about stretching the dollar. So basically
you're saying in New York City, it is still possible to get free locations.
Oh, absolutely.
That's the moral of the story.
Yeah, absolutely. But, it's like any place. Sometimes you have to kiss a lot of frogs to find it,
TC, and has Atlanta still got film-friendly locations?
I mean, it totally does. And again, to piggyback off of what Maurice was saying, it's community. It's based on your relationships. I mean, it's not so much, where you're going to shoot. You can figure out how to shoot wherever you want in the city, to be honest with you. And the phenomenal thing about Atlanta and the surrounding areas is, again, there's so much diversity in what you can do here. You've got Savannah, you've got the beaches, all of these different things you can do here. It's also what you're going to do. I mean, again, it's all about respect, and we talk about respect a lot, but support your local businesses, feature locations that want, free marketing for their business, essentially. And it's a lot of that. One thing that I think is unique about Atlanta is there is so much studio space here as well. And I think when we're talking about locations, we should talk about a little bit about studio space. There is a lot of studio space here within Atlanta that will work for reasonable rates with filmmakers. So you want to work on a stage, you can find
what's a reasonable rate in your mind for a day?
Again, and it's so difficult to answer that question because a lot of it is, again, based on your relationships. So, you could come up, there's a phenomenal studio. I don't know that they necessarily want people to know that they let me use this place, but I was working on this stage that essentially gave it to me for like $1,000 for the day, but also gave me an entire G&E package, an entire camera package, and they let me use half of their regular crew.
Wow.
So it was like $1,000 for like all of that. And we were shooting Alexa Mini LF. We had a full Grip Electric package, all of this stuff. And it was because I had a relationship with them that said, hey, I'm an independent filmmaker. I'm also a Directors Guild assistant director. I work constantly in the commercial world as a producer, all of these different things. I will bring you more business if you can work with me for this small project. So I did $1,000 a day and got all of this resource for, essentially nothing.
sorry, if we only have like 2 minutes left. So I want to make sure if anybody has questions about a specific city that you maybe have been thinking about moving to, please put them in the box now so we make sure we answer that before we're done. I do want, Jenn, I have had in the last, a decade ago maybe, but I don't think that you can walk into many places in LA and say, look, we can get you more business and we're going to cater for you.
People don't care. I think it's people think I think because we've had people have been filming in LA for so long, you think it would be easier, but it's actually harder because I think people just know what filming entails and they've been through the gamut of like things that could go wrong or like there's just more rules around it. And I mean, even for me, it's like, oh, great, we have beaches, but some beaches require dual permits. And there's all these rules, like you have to stay 15 feet away from this and you can't have trucks bigger than this. And then if we did like fireworks for a music video. Okay, now you got to call in the Coast Guard, which is going to cost you $65 an hour. And then, and there's such strict times that you can shoot. So it's definitely tougher, but you know what? We got great weather. We don't have to worry about rain days as much, snow, that kind of thing.
It's funny you say that because I remember specifically on one of my big music videos, it rained and the kids were supposed to be out there with signs in the park, but we did it anyway. And it was actually kind of cool, but
yeah. Listen, if you need snow.
We do have to wrap this up. This has been so great. You guys have given us a lot of information, a lot of things to think about. I know we actually were looking at houses in Atlanta, considering that, but then hearing this, it's like, well, maybe it's an easier flight to LA when I got to get back. Like, this is a lot of stuff to think about. So I really appreciate your time being here. Everybody who's watching, you can reach them. You can see their handles. You can get a hold of them. And also, if you're in their local area, I know they would all love to have you say hello or hire them. That's
Yeah.
All right. We're going to let you guys get out of here. Everybody else who is still here, I want to let you know that our next event is Studio Program Interview Prep with Kirschner. So if you're applying to studio programs as a writer or director, you need to be on this event. It's June 3rd, 11 a.m. Pacific time. She is going to mock interview 3 of our fellows, and you are going to learn a ton about what you're doing wrong and why you're not getting booked in these programs. And if you haven't gotten your interview yet, it's a great way to prep. Remember to submit your 5-minute or less short films to our Blackmagic Collective Film Festival. It's free to submit, and there's huge prizes at the end. And like and follow us on our socials to get updates. Join our brand new Facebook group. We're starting to get people in there asking questions and talking tech and sharing funny memes. So get in there. And what else? Oh, blackmagiccollective.com. You can join to be a member. So if you're not a member, I highly encourage. It's completely free. You'll get alerted for these events. You'll get to be alerted for the initiatives that we do for career advancement and any live events. The 5 chapters you just saw all have live events coming up in the new year. So you're going to get to meet everybody in person and get out and network. So become a member, blackmagiccollective.com. Thank you to all of you who stuck around, for answering questions, for commenting about your city. It was fantastic. And thank you again to our sponsor, Blackmagic Design, for helping us make all of this free for everybody. And until next time, go make some magic.